The room was quiet, too quiet for a man like Donald Trump. The Vatican had always felt like a place made for saints or ghosts, not businessmen. But here he was, standing in a room with no gold, no applause, no cameras, just him and Pope Francis. The door had closed with a soft click that sounded louder than it should have. Trump cleared his throat, his voice low. "You said you wanted to speak off the record." The Pope nodded gently, eyes soft but searching. "Yes, not as a leader to another, as a man to a man." Trump gave a half smile, arms crossed. "All right then, shoot." The Pope didn't laugh. He just stepped forward, placing a hand gently on a worn wooden chair, then gestured for Trump to sit. Trump hesitated. Then slowly he did. There was a long silence. Trump broke it. "You know, I don't usually do silence." "I know," the Pope said, smiling now. "That's why I thought we should start there." Trump chuckled under his breath, looking down at the rug beneath him. "What's this about?" The Pope took a breath. "There was once a king," he began, his voice soft and sure, "who built walls around his heart. High walls. He told himself it was to keep the enemy out. But in time, he realized he'd also trapped himself inside." Trump looked up, his face still but listening. The king ruled with strength. People feared him. He won battles. He made laws. He stood tall. But when he was alone, in the middle of the night, he couldn't sleep. His victories didn't hold him. His name didn't comfort him. The air in the room shifted, almost like it grew heavier. One day, the Pope continued, the king fell to his knees. He didn't know why. He wasn't sick. He wasn't dying. He just broke. And in the silence of his breaking, he finally prayed, really prayed. Trump blinked slowly. And what did he hear? The Pope looked him straight in the eye. He heard God say, "You don't need to rule. You need to heal." Trump didn't say anything for a long time, just stared down at the floor, like the words were peeling something open inside him. A memory, maybe, or a regret. "I think I built those same walls," he whispered, almost to himself. Another pause. Then the Pope leaned in. "Tell me, when was the last time you were quiet enough to hear something deeper than your own voice?" Trump didn't answer, not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't know. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't interrupt. He just sat there, silent. But in that silence, something was shifting. A storm wasn't coming. It had already passed. But what was left behind? Trump leaned back in the chair, his hands resting in his lap now, not clenched, just open. The silence wasn't awkward anymore. It was honest, and maybe, for the first time in his life, he wasn't trying to fill it. "When I was a boy," Trump finally said, eyes distant, "my mother used to read the Bible to me at night. Psalm 23, always the same one. 'The Lord is my shepherd.'" He paused, exhaling slowly. "Back then it sounded like poetry. Now, I wonder if it was a map." The Pope watched him gently, like someone watching a man walk across thin ice, not wanting to scare him or let him fall. Trump looked over. "Do you believe people like me can change?" The Pope didn't answer right away. He just looked at Trump, his eyes filled with something more powerful than judgment, compassion. "I don't believe change starts in power, or politics, or even in the mirror," he said. "I think change begins in the space where the heart finally stops trying to win." Trump swallowed hard. That hit something, maybe because his whole life had been a race, a chase, and he was always running, towards something, or away. What if you've spent so long being strong that you forgot how to be soft? The Pope asked gently. Trump didn't flinch, but his jaw tightened. "Do you know," Trump said slowly, "people think I don't care, that I don't feel anything. But I do. I just learned how to hide it so well. I started believing it myself." He looked away, suddenly vulnerable, like a crack had opened, and he wasn't sure if light or tears would pour out. Love doesn't survive in hiding, the Pope said quietly. It needs space. It needs surrender. Trump laughed once, not because it was funny, but because it hurt. My dad, he didn't believe in weakness. Said emotion made you lose control. I guess I made that my religion. The Pope leaned forward slightly. And what has that religion given you? Trump's eyes flicked to his hands, then to the cross on the Pope's chest. He didn't answer. Donald, the Pope said with deep sincerity, what if strength isn't about building walls, but about breaking them first inside yourself? Trump didn't speak, so the Pope did. Jesus once said, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." He didn't say the powerful. He didn't say the successful. He said the pure. Trump's throat tightened. Something was rising. Old. Unnamed. I don't even know if I believe anymore, Trump whispered. I mean, if God is real, why would he even want someone like me? The Pope's eyes softened more. Maybe he doesn't want the version of you the world sees. Maybe he wants the boy who used to listen to Psalm 23. Trump looked down again, and for the first time he didn't feel like a king. He felt like a son. The room was still, as if time itself had paused to listen. Trump rubbed his palm slowly against his knee, like he was trying to remember how it felt to be someone else. Someone smaller. Someone softer. His voice, when it came again, was quieter than before. I don't even remember the last time I prayed without asking for something. The Pope didn't move, didn't speak, just gave the silence enough room to breathe. I mean, I've said the words, Trump went on, eyes fixed on the marble floor. Before rallies, before debates, even in the hospital once. He paused, but it was always transactional, like a deal. God, if you help me win this, I don't know. I'll be better. I'll try harder. I'll say your name more often. He looked up now. His eyes weren't proud. They weren't defensive. They were just tired. And every time, he said, voice cracking slightly, I forgot the promise. The Pope leaned back slowly. God is not a deal maker, Donald. I know, Trump said, almost laughing, but I didn't. Not really. I think I saw him like a silent partner, someone I could use to build an empire, not someone I was meant to trust with my soul. The Pope's eyes welled with something that felt ancient, grief perhaps, but also hope. We all learn the hard way, he said gently. But what matters is that we do learn. Trump looked away, blinking quickly. His hands had started to tremble just a little, not out of fear, but because something was thawing. I've spent my whole life trying to prove I was enough, rich enough, strong enough, smart enough. But no matter how many towers I built, I always felt hollow inside them. The Pope nodded. Do you think that's an accident? That maybe the emptiness was a signal, not a punishment? Trump didn't speak, but something in his chest tightened. What if God never left? The Pope said. What if you just stopped listening? Trump closed his eyes, and in that darkness, memories came. Not headlines, not handshakes, not the roar of crowds, just quiet moments. His mother humming a hymn, the feel of a church pew, the warmth of a small hand, his youngest son's, grabbing his without words, just trust. What does healing even look like? He asked, eyes still shut. The Pope stood slowly and walked toward the window, letting light spill over both of them. It looks like forgiveness, he said, and not just forgiving others, but letting yourself be forgiven too. Trump opened his eyes. The light made him squint. Why does that sound harder than everything I've ever done? Because it is, the Pope whispered. It means surrender, and surrender requires more courage than control ever did. Trump stood now too, slowly, almost unsure of his own weight. He looked at the Pope, then at the light pouring in through stained glass. Do you think it's too late for me? The Pope didn't answer. He just asked, "What would you do if it wasn't?" Trump didn't answer right away. He stared at the colors the stained glass painted on the marble floor. Blues, reds, golds, light that had passed through brokenness, yet came out beautiful. He took a step toward the window, then stopped. "I don't know what I'd do," he said finally, "because I've never lived like it wasn't too late." The Pope stayed silent, letting the words land. Trump shook his head slightly, as if trying to clear fog. "You get used to wearing a mask. Not the kind for TV, not the makeup. The one that says you're always fine, always right, always strong." He turned to face the Pope. "But what if all that strength is the thing that's been killing me?" The Pope nodded slowly. "A mask might protect you for a time," he said softly, "but it also keeps you from being seen. And we were created to be known." Trump looked away, blinking hard. "I thought I needed to be a lion to survive," he muttered. "And what did Jesus choose to be?" the Pope asked. Trump didn't reply. "A lamb," the Pope whispered, "not because he was weak, but because he was free." Trump exhaled. The air felt heavier now, like his chest had been carrying weight for years and was only now beginning to loosen its grip. "I think," Trump began, then paused. "I think I'm scared of who I'd be without the fight." The Pope took a slow step toward him. "Maybe that's the real faith, Donald, not believing God exists, but believing he'd still love you even if the world didn't." That stopped him. Trump's eyes met his, raw, searching. "Is that what you believe?" he asked. "That God still wants someone like me?" The Pope smiled, not with his mouth, but with his eyes. "I believe God never stops knocking, but the door opens from the inside." Trump's throat tightened again. "So what now?" he asked. "You've told me the story, you've said the words. Am I just supposed to fall to my knees and everything changes?" "No," the Pope said. "I'm not here for theatrics. I'm here because I think God's been waiting for you to stop performing." Trump didn't move. "I'm not asking for a conversion," the Pope added. "I'm asking for a conversation." Trump swallowed. "With who?" The Pope stepped closer. "With God, with the part of you that still remembers Psalm 23, the part that still wonders where love comes from and why silence feels so holy." Trump let that sit. And then, slowly, he sat back down in the chair. Not because he was giving up, but because something in him was finally giving in. The Pope sat too, across from him. And in the quiet, Trump whispered a question no one had heard him ask before. "What if the power I've chased my whole life was never real power at all?" The Pope didn't rush to answer. He just let the question breathe, like it needed space to echo through more than just marble walls. It had to echo through the years, the speeches, the boardrooms, the lonely hotel rooms, the silent car rides after the crowds disappeared. "What if it wasn't real power?" Trump repeated, this time more to himself than anyone else. "What if I built a throne out of noise, and now I don't know how to live without it?" He looked up, and for the first time, his face looked young, not in age, but in vulnerability, like a boy who'd gotten lost and only just realized it. The Pope leaned forward, his fingers gently touching the edge of the chair. "Real power," he said softly, "is not the ability to bend others. It's the courage to be bent by love." Trump stared at him. "I've been told love is weakness." "You've been told wrong." Another silence. Trump looked toward the door. "People will say I've gone soft." The Pope nodded slowly. "Yes, they will. And they'll mock me." "They might." Trump exhaled, shaking his head. "You really think God wants anything to do with someone like me? With the lies, the pride, the mess?" "I think," the Pope said, "that Jesus spent more time with the broken than the perfect. And maybe that wasn't charity. Maybe it was a mirror." Trump looked down, and the words came low, like a confession. I don't know how to be loved without earning it. The Pope's voice cracked just slightly. Neither do most men. That's why grace feels so impossible, because it can't be won, it has to be received. Trump closed his eyes. In that moment, everything felt quiet again. But it wasn't the silence of power. It was the silence after pretending, the stillness that comes when a man finally stops running. I used to watch the sunrise from the top of Trump Tower, he said, his voice distant. Felt like I owned the city, but I was always alone up there. Always. The Pope gave a gentle nod. What's the view worth if there's no one beside you to see it? Trump nodded slowly. Then he said something the Pope hadn't expected. My son, Trump whispered. Baron. He once asked me, Dad, if you could start over, would you still be famous or just be with us more? He paused, a lump rising in his throat. I told him I'd still chase the dream. I laughed when I said it. A long pause. But it wasn't funny. The Pope leaned in, gently, reverently. It's not too late to answer him differently. Trump wiped at his eyes, not like a man ashamed, but like someone finally letting something break. Do you think he'd believe me if I told him I'm trying to change? The Pope didn't answer right away. Instead, he asked, what would it look like if the next time he saw you, he didn't see a king, but a father? Trump sat completely still, not out of stubbornness, but as if the question had stopped something deep inside him, a quiet ache he hadn't named before. A father. The words echoed louder than titles ever had, louder than president, louder than boss, louder than any name a crowd had ever chanted. A father, not the one who controls, but the one who kneels, who listens, who holds. Trump looked at the Pope, his voice rough. I don't know how to be that. The Pope leaned back slowly. Then start by being present, not perfect. Trump closed his eyes. How do you become someone different when the world still expects the old version of you to walk into every room? The Pope's voice was tender, nearly a whisper. You don't change by erasing who you were. You change by choosing who you are now, one moment at a time, one honest prayer at a time. A tear fell, unnoticed by Trump, and landed on his cuff. For once, he didn't wipe it away. When I leave this room, he said, the noise will come back. The headlines, the pressure, the expectations. I'll want to wear the mask again. The Pope stood and placed a hand gently on Trump's shoulder. Then take the silence with you, he said. Carry it like a candle. Even in the darkest places, it will remind you of this light. Trump rose slowly, not with confidence, but with weight. The weight of memory, of failure, and maybe, for the first time, of grace. The Pope walked him to the door. Neither man said much, but just before Trump reached the threshold, he turned. Will God really hear me, he asked, if all I have is a whisper? The Pope smiled deeply. It's not the volume that moves him, it's the honesty. Trump looked down at his hands, then slowly back to the Pope. Then I'll try. The Pope gave a small, reverent nod. That's all he's ever asked. They embraced briefly, and as Trump walked out, something in him felt quieter. Later that night, in a hotel room far from cameras and applause, Trump sat at the edge of his bed, holding a piece of hotel stationery. He stared at it for a long time. Then he began to write. Dear Baron, I don't know if I've always been the kind of father you deserved, but I'm writing this to say, I'm trying now. Not to impress you, not to prove anything, but to be someone you'd be proud to hug when no one's watching. Today, a man told me that healing starts when you stop performing. I think he was right. I want to be someone worth coming home to, not just someone people talk about on the news. He paused, looked up. The room was silent, but not empty. And as he folded the letter and placed it by the window, the first light of dawn broke through. It wasn't a spotlight. It was just morning, and for once that was enough.